They looked at you again, but this time something shifted. The way they used to glance past you like you didn't matter, like you were forgettable. That look is gone. Now their eyes linger. They hesitate. Some are quiet around you now. Others watch from a distance, and though no one says it out loud, they feel it. They feel the shift. But they have no idea what it took to get here. They don't know about the nights you cried in silence, the prayers whispered through trembling lips, the promises you clung to when nothing in your life looked like a promise was coming. They don't know that while they were mocking you, heaven was molding you. While they were measuring your worth by your wounds, God was writing a story of resilience so sacred, it had to be hidden. Let me be clear. You weren't invisible. You were intentionally hidden. And not because you were unworthy, but because your power needed time to mature in the dark. Some of you watching this, you've lived your whole life feeling like an outsider in your own home. You've walked through friendships where your loyalty was taken for granted. You've held wisdom far beyond your years, but had no one willing to listen. You've been the too intense, the too quiet, the too different. You've been told to calm down, to blend in, to play small. But here's what no one told you. Chosen ones never fit. We're not meant to. We carry frequencies that disrupt every room we enter, not because we want to, but because truth can't help but shake lies. You were called not to conform, but to confront, not to be accepted, but to awaken. That ache you've carried all your life, that heaviness in your soul you couldn't quite explain. It's not a burden. It's a signal. A sign that your life was never meant to be ordinary. And now something is stirring in you again. You feel the urgency rising. You're starting to dream again. Wild, impossible dreams. You're being drawn to videos like this, messages like this. You can't scroll past them anymore. Because deep down you know this isn't just a video. This is a spiritual confirmation. There's a reason you're here. There's a reason you're still breathing after everything tried to take you out. There's a reason the enemy fought so hard to make you doubt yourself. It's because you are the vessel, the light carrier, the warrior in disguise. Heaven didn't abandon you. Heaven disguised you until the timing was right. And now the disguise is peeling away. The oil is rising to the surface. The royalty in your blood is being revealed, and the world is not ready for what's coming through you. So if you've been sensing something, seeing signs like 777, 11, 11, or waking up at 3 a.m. with your spirit alert, you're not crazy, you're awakening. And no, you're not imagining the shift in how people treat you. They see it. They just don't know what it is. But after this message, you will. This isn't the time to shrink. This is the time to rise, to take your seat, to remember your assignment, and walk like you already know how the story ends, because in the eyes of heaven, you've already won. So before we go deeper, I want you to do something. Type 777 in the comments. If you know this message is for you, like this video so it reaches another chosen one who's been waiting for this exact word. And subscribe because your journey doesn't end here. It's just beginning. Let's go deeper. Part 1. The Unseen Years. A Secret Life in Plain Sight. You were there the whole time. You didn't grow up hidden in a cave or on some mountaintop. You were right in front of them in the family photos, in the classroom, in the job meetings, in the pews. But they never really saw you. They saw what you did. They saw how you helped, how you served, how you showed up. But they never saw the depth. They didn't see the conflict raging inside you. The part of you that wanted to belong, and the part of you that just couldn't bend. They didn't notice how much you noticed. They didn't realize that your silence wasn't ignorance, it was discernment. You lived a life that was public, but private. Visible, but veiled. You knew how to stand in the room and shrink your presence so others could shine. You smiled in moments when your spirit was screaming for truth. You held your tongue when you could have spoken fire, because deep down you knew your power wasn't meant to be revealed yet. You didn't fit, not because you were broken, but because you were born for a reality they couldn't access. Some of you, even as children, carried eyes that saw through people. You knew when someone was lying, even if no one believed you. You could feel the tension behind a fake smile. You sensed when something was off, even when everyone else clapped and cheered. You didn't know it then, but what you had wasn't anxiety or overthinking. It was discernment. It was a prophetic sensitivity to atmosphere. It was spiritual intelligence in a world that rewards spiritual blindness. And so to survive, you had to hide it. You dimmed your light. You laughed at jokes that weren't funny. You agreed with things you never believed in. You learned how to play small in a system that punishes those who carry heavenly vision. The world loves safe. And you were never safe because your mere presence disrupted illusion. Your integrity exposed manipulation. Your consistency embarrassed opportunists. You were unbothered by status. You didn't chase popularity. You didn't sell your soul for belonging. And they didn't know what to do with that. So instead of trying to understand you, they tried to silence you. They tried to label you. You're too deep. You're too sensitive. You're too spiritual. You're just doing too much. But you weren't doing too much. You were carrying too much, and nobody bothered to ask why. But heaven knew. Heaven always knew. You see, chosen ones aren't made when people finally applaud you. You're marked long before they understand you. And so God hid you, not out of punishment but protection. Because if your power had been revealed too soon, it would have been exploited. If your voice had gained influence too early, it would have been misused. If your beauty, your mind, your gifting had been unleashed without wisdom, it would have attracted the wrong alliances. So instead, He hid you in plain sight. He let you be underestimated. He allowed you to be overlooked. He permitted their dismissal, not because you were weak, but because He was working. You know this is true if you were the one who did everything right and still got left out. You held secrets for people who never protected yours. You poured into others until you were empty, and then they blamed you for burning out. You could have exposed people but chose peace instead. You swallowed truths that could have burned bridges because your spirit never sought revenge. If you're nodding right now, if this is hitting too close to home, that's not a coincidence. That's confirmation. Because the unseen years aren't wasted years. They are where God tests your integrity in the dark. They are where He watches how you treat people who can't reward you. They are where He refines your heart, so you don't just carry power, you carry purity. Think about Joseph. He had dreams that made no sense to his brothers, visions too big for the environment he was born into. So they did what people always do to chosen ones with unexplainable callings. They tried to bury him. But what they didn't know is that pits are precious to God, because that's where He speaks the clearest. That's where titles are stripped and identity is clarified. That's where character is carved. Joseph went from pit to prison, and still his heart didn't turn bitter. He served with excellence in secret places until the time was right. And when the doors of the palace opened, he was ready not just to lead, but to forgive. That's the kind of chosen one God is raising up in you. What this season taught you was sacred. You learned how to pray when no one clapped. You learned how to keep showing up when no one thanked you. You learned how to carry weight that should have broken you, but instead it built you. You became fluent in spiritual silence. You mastered how to see without speaking. You discovered the art of hidden warfare and won battles no one even knew you were fighting. So now, when they look at you with new eyes, when they start circling back, when they ask, "How did you get here?" You can smile because they'll never fully understand. They weren't there in the silence. They didn't hear the whisper. I chose you, I kept you, I'll lift you. This is why you're unshakable now. This is why you walk differently. Not with arrogance, but with alignment. Because the wilderness didn't break you, it built your throne. The rejection didn't define you, it protected your positioning. The unseen years weren't punishment, they were preparation. You were never random. You were never forgotten. You were never weak. You were being written, and now, the story is ready to be told. Part 2. The whispers they never heard. They never said it out loud, but you felt it. Every room you walked into carried tension you couldn't explain. People smiled with their mouths, but something behind their eyes said, "You don't belong here." They never said it, but they wondered why you were so calm, why you didn't compete, why you weren't begging to be noticed like everyone else, why you had this stillness about you, even when you had nothing. They didn't understand it, so instead of asking, they assumed, and assumptions turn into whispers, little conversations in corners, side eyes when you spoke. Questions asked about you, but never to you. Who does she think she is? That one always comes first. They ask it when your presence doesn't match your position. When you walk with grace, even though your clothes aren't name brand. When you speak with confidence, even though you're not the one with the mic. You weren't chasing a spotlight, but your essence couldn't be ignored. And that unsettled them, because you were supposed to be insecure. You were supposed to ask for permission. You were supposed to dim your power so they could feel bigger. But you didn't. Not because you were trying to prove anything, but because something deep inside you refused to die. Something's off about them. That's the second whisper. They say it when they can't control you, when your boundaries confuse them, when your silence makes them nervous. You didn't overshare like others. You didn't participate in gossip. You didn't chase approval or pretend to be interested in shallow validation. And instead of admiring that, they labeled it as suspicious. Because in a world full of people who crave attention, your ability to walk in peace was threatening. Your stillness was power. And power, when it's quiet, scares the ones who only know how to shout. They think they're better than us. That one stings, doesn't it? Especially when you spent years shrinking yourself to make others feel comfortable. You gave and gave and gave, and still they accused you of pride. You encouraged them in private, defended them in public. But the moment you pulled away for your own peace, suddenly you were too good. You never said you were better. You just stopped letting them break you. And the moment you did, their whispers turned cold. Because the truth is, they didn't hate you. They hated your freedom. Here's the truth they never admitted. They saw something in you before you even saw it in yourselves. They saw how you didn't fold. They saw how your heart stayed kind, even after betrayal. They saw how favor seemed to follow you in strange, quiet ways. And they couldn't explain it. Because they had more money, more connections, more confidence, or so it seemed. But you had something else. You had oil. You had purpose. You had a connection to the divine that didn't require noise lights or titles. You walked differently, and no one could figure out why. The real whispers were from their own conscience. They weren't whispering about you. They were whispering to themselves, asking themselves, why do I feel exposed when they walk into the room? Why does their silence make me feel seen? Why do I feel convicted just being around them? Because when someone carries truth, it confronts every lie in the atmosphere. And you've been carrying truth even when you didn't know it. You never had to say much. Your spirit spoke louder than your voice ever could. They watched you suffer, and it made them uncomfortable because you didn't curse God. You didn't lash out. You didn't self-destruct like they expected. They were waiting for you to give up, and you didn't. They were waiting for you to fall apart, and somehow you stood taller. That's what broke them. It wasn't your success. It was your survival. Real-life whispers sound like this. I don't know why I can't stop thinking about them. They've changed, but not in a bad way. I tried to be like them, but it doesn't feel the same. Something about them feels protected. Yes, protected. Because you were. Heaven shielded you even when you were unaware. They tried to mock you. God muffled their mouths. They tried to sabotage you. God rerouted the damage. They tried to erase you. God engraved you deeper in destiny. Daniel didn't scream to be noticed. He didn't beg for favor. He didn't compromise his values to blend in. And yet kings lost sleep over him. Courts whispered about him. Lions couldn't touch him. Why? Because Daniel was marked just like you. Marked by integrity. Marked by divine excellence. Marked by a spirit this world cannot understand. They put Daniel in the lion's den. But the lions didn't open their mouths. Because when you are chosen, even what's meant to devour you has to pause. And when you re-emerge from that dark place, people don't just respect you, they reconsider you. Your quietness was your covering. You didn't explain yourself, and that was divine. You didn't fight back every time, and that was maturity. You didn't expose their wrongs, and that was mercy. Now the same people who doubted you watch in silence. Not because they believe in you now, but because they don't know what else to say. And they shouldn't, because the version of you they whispered about was only your cocoon. The one they're seeing now is a soul who knows how to fly. So now, what you're stepping into a season where God is allowing you to be seen again, but this time the whispers won't distract you. You've learned to discern noise from truth. You've grown out of needing validation. You've healed from the lies. And most importantly, you've stopped trying to prove anything. Because the chosen ones don't rise to be accepted. They rise to fulfill prophecy. You didn't survive just to start over. You endured so you could reign wisely, humbly, fiercely. And the ones who whispered, they're not your enemies. They were confirmation. Proof that your light irritated what was fake. Proof that your purity challenged their poison. Proof that you've been chosen all along. Part 3. Signs from Heaven. Are you being marked for elevation? Some things aren't coincidences. And deep down, you already know that. You didn't land on this video by chance. You didn't stumble across the number 777 for the 5th time this week. Just because you didn't wake up at 3:33 a.m., feel a sudden chill, and feel your spirit alert for no reason. Heaven is speaking. The question is, are you listening? Chosen ones aren't called with trumpets. They're marked in whispers. Not everyone will see what you're going through. Not everyone will believe what you're sensing. But if you're honest, you've started to notice it too. Time feels different lately. People you thought would stay forever are suddenly vanishing. You're losing interest in shallow things. You feel emotionally detached, not numb, but focused. You keep seeing repeated patterns. Numbers, phrases, animals, dreams. And it's too specific to be random. It's not just a shift. It's a divine announcement. God speaks through patterns, always has. In Scripture, He used visions, dreams, angelic messengers, even writing on walls to get people's attention. Today, He still speaks, but His language is layered. Numbers, dreams, gut instincts, divine delays, recurring symbols, sudden urges to leave, move, release, or pause. And if you're a true chosen one, you've likely experienced some of these and felt almost crazy for noticing them. Let me affirm you. You're not crazy. You're tuned in. What heaven uses to mark you. Prophetic numbers 111, 333, 777, 999. You look at your phone, and it's 444. You pay for something, and it ends in $7.77. You dream of the number 9 3 nights in a row. These are not lottery signs. They are spiritual timestamps. 111. Awakening. You're being initiated. 333. Alignment. Mind, body. Spirit, get ready. 777. Divine completion. The promise is maturing. 999. Closure. Let it go. It's done. 2022. Agreement. Your spirit is in sync with God's will. 555. Big change. Brace yourself. This will not be small. Every number carries vibration. And when you keep seeing them, God is reminding you, I'm right here. Don't miss what's coming. 2. Dreams that won't let you go. You keep dreaming about people from the past. About water, about doors, about traveling, about falling, about flying, or worse, about being chased. Dreams are not just your brain processing stress. They're sometimes downloads from heaven. Water equals purification, cleansing emotion. Flying equals spiritual acceleration, freedom. Chased equals avoidance, spiritual resistance. Elevators in levels changing. Death equals transformation, not always literal. Giving birth equals creative season, new purpose being born. Don't ignore the dreams. Write them down. Pray over them. Ask for clarity. Heaven often speaks when the world is finally quiet in your sleep. 3. Sudden separation. Out of nowhere, people begin pulling away, opportunities fall through. You feel like you're in a fog of isolation. That's not punishment, it's divine separation. When God is elevating you, He removes voices that would interfere. He creates a gap, not to leave you empty, but to make space for something higher. Stop chasing the people God already removed. Stop reopening doors that heaven sealed. This season is about consecration. 4. Strange peace in the midst of chaos. You should be panicking, but you're not. Bills are due, relationships are strained. You're in unfamiliar territory, yet your spirit is calm. That's not apathy. That's not denial. That's spiritual confirmation. God's peace doesn't make sense in the natural. And that's how you know it's Him. When others are falling apart and you're rising in clarity, it means you're aligned. You're walking in a vibration that's no longer dependent on circumstance. You're walking in your calling. John 5. An inner urge to purge. You feel an unexplainable desire to clean your space. Throw out old clothes. Declutter relationships. Reorganize your thoughts. Spend more time alone. Fast. Pray. Be still. That's not a trend. That's not seasonal depression. That's heaven preparing you for elevation. Before God promotes you, He purifies you. He removes distractions. He breaks addictions. He silences noise. Why? Because where you're going, the old version of you can't enter. And here's the real question. Have you been ignoring these signs? Have you brushed off the patterns as superstition? Have you dismissed the dreams as nonsense? Have you labeled the separation as rejection? Because God doesn't send signs for entertainment. He sends signs for alignment. He's not asking you to figure it all out. He's asking you to pay attention. Because your elevation won't always come with warning. Sometimes it comes suddenly after a season of subtle signs. When God speaks through a stranger. One woman shared this. She was on the verge of giving up. Her business was failing. Her relationships were draining. Her prayers felt hollow. One day, a man at a gas station, someone she'd never met, turned around, looked her in the eye and said, "I don't know why I'm telling you this, but don't quit. You're about to cross over." She froze. She'd never told anyone how she was feeling. She'd never spoken a word out loud. And yet somehow, heaven had sent someone who could hear the ache in her spirit. That was the day everything changed. She didn't win the lottery. She didn't get a promotion. But she got confirmation, and that was enough to spark her final push. Now she's leading a movement of healing and faith. And she credits that moment, that one whisper, as the sign that she was being marked for elevation. Biblical proof, Elijah's whisper. God didn't speak to Elijah in the earthquake, not in the fire, not in the wind. He spoke in a whisper. Because chosen ones must learn to hear God in the silence, not in the spectacle. And when you start recognizing that God is speaking through your patterns, your dreams, your gut feelings, you'll start living from a place of divine precision. No more confusion, no more chasing clarity, no more asking people for permission to believe what God already told you. So now what? If you've seen these signs, if you've felt these whispers, if you've been nudged over and over but told yourself it's nothing, then this is your confirmation. Heaven is calling you higher. Not later, not next year, now. So here's what you do. Comment 343 below if your spirit is aligned and you've been seeing the signs. Write down your dreams. Don't let them fade. Cut ties with anything God is no longer blessing. Say yes even if you're afraid, because your next season won't wait on your comfort. It's waiting on your obedience. Part 4. Walking in Divine Power, the New Identity. You've spent years surviving fighting battles no one saw, wrestling with shadows in your own mind, keeping your soul intact, while the world tried to break your spirit. But now, something has shifted. You're no longer surviving. You're stepping into authority. And with that shift comes something sacred, something undeniable, something that can't be faked, forced or fabricated. Power. But not the kind of power the world expects. Not the kind that screams for attention. Not the kind that flexes money, influence, or likes. Not the kind that manipulates or performs. This is divine power, the kind that comes from surviving fire and coming out cleaner, not colder. The kind that comes from choosing love when hate was easier. The kind that walks into a room and shifts the energy without saying a word. Because now, you carry presence, and presence is built in private. When you walk in divine power, people feel it before you speak. They may not know what changed, they may not know where it came from, but they know something is different. They become quieter around you, more respectful, sometimes more hostile, because your light now exposes what they were able to hide in your absence. You've become a mirror that reflects truth without judgment, a mirror that reveals what others are trying to avoid. And that's why you felt misunderstood again. Not because you're arrogant, but because your alignment is now loud. You're not reacting the same way anymore. What used to trigger you doesn't shake you. The same insults don't land. The old temptations feel dull now. You don't explain yourself to be understood. You let your fruit speak. You don't rush. You don't beg. You don't force connections. Why? Because when you know who you are, you stop chasing what isn't assigned to you. Let's pause for a moment. Sound familiar? You've stopped texting first. Not out of pride, but peace. You've been more quiet in rooms where you once over-explained. You feel something sacred pulling you toward purpose, but you can't explain it to others. People keep saying, "You've changed," and they're right. You're not who you were. And that was always the point. These aren't personality changes. These are identity upgrades. You're walking in divine power, not performance. So what does divine power really look like? Silence that carries weight. You no longer rush to defend yourself. You don't explain every move. You're okay with being misunderstood because you answer to something higher. Your silence used to feel like weakness. Now it feels like strategy. Because when heaven is your covering, you don't need constant clarification. Your power now flows through stillness. 2. Decisions rooted in discernment, not fear. You used to say yes because you didn't want to disappoint anyone. Now you say no because you won't disappoint your calling. You feel what's right even when it's unpopular. You trust your spiritual instincts more than other people's opinions. You don't need 5 confirmations anymore. You know when your spirit speaks. And this shift makes others uncomfortable, because the old you second-guessed everything. The new you walks away without guilt. 3. Forgiveness without access. You're no longer holding on to bitterness, but you're also not reopening doors God shut. You're not cursing those who hurt you, but you're not pretending it didn't happen either. You've learned that grace doesn't mean gullibility. You bless from a distance, you forgive, release, and realign. And that is power. Or reverence for yourself. This is the part no one talks about. When you finally start seeing yourself the way God sees you, everything shifts. You stop settling. You stop begging to be chosen. You stop explaining why you carry what you carry. Because now you know. You were never too much. They were simply too small for your assignment. You carry kingdom within you, and royalty doesn't beg for loyalty. Jesus, after the wilderness, before the miracles, before the crowds, before the betrayal, Jesus spent time alone, in the wilderness, isolated, tempted, undervalued. But when he emerged, he walked in power. He didn't seek fame, it followed him. He didn't shout for recognition. Heaven announced him, because power that is divinely cultivated doesn't need validation. It commands atmosphere. And when he returned to his hometown, what did they say? Isn't this the carpenter's son? They couldn't recognize the anointing because they were still trapped in his history. That's exactly what's happening to some of you right now. You've changed. You've grown. You've been through the wilderness, and now you're different. But they still see the old version of you. They still talk to the you from 5 years ago. They still expect the wounded apologetic version who always said yes. But that version doesn't live here anymore. You've been reborn. So how do you protect your power? Don't entertain what drains you. Your peace is too expensive to waste on confusion. 2. Protect your time. Chosen ones don't just have energy. They have assignments. Be where you're sent, not just where you're invited. 3. Stay humble, but never shrink. You can walk in confidence without arrogance. You can speak truth without tone. Let your power speak gently, but don't mute it. 4. Don't apologize for your upgrade. Let them adjust or exit. You're not required to downplay your growth for the comfort of those who refused to grow with you. This is your identity now. You are not just awake. You are aligned. You are not just chosen. You are activated. You are not just gifted. You are graced. You've stepped out of the season of hiding and into the season of walking with sacred authority. Your story is no longer a secret. Your presence is no longer invisible. Your soul is no longer for sale. Heaven backs your footsteps. Angels respond to your words. Divine favor walks ahead of you. And no one can take what God sealed over your life. Part 5. What comes next? The call is now public. There's a moment in every chosen one's journey when heaven stops whispering and starts announcing. You can feel it before it happens. You notice the shift in the air. Your name starts coming up in rooms you didn't enter. People you barely know begin looking at you with curious eyes, and inside something sacred stirs. Not fear, not pride, but a deep knowing. This is it. The hiding season is over. You were hidden for a reason. Now you're revealed for a purpose. Let's be clear. The visibility that's coming isn't about ego. It's not about fame, followers, or applause. It's about divine positioning. Because what you carry, the truth, the anointing, the discernment, the depth, was never meant to stay private. There's a generation in pain waiting on the sound of your obedience. There's a territory you're assigned to, not because you're perfect, but because you're obedient. You are now walking in what many avoided a public call with private roots. And that comes with weight. Visibility without foundation is dangerous. That's why heaven didn't elevate you before you were ready. You needed those years in silence. You needed that emotional pruning. You needed to learn what voices to ignore and which ones to protect. Because now, people will start coming to you for answers. They'll ask questions you once asked in the dark. They'll need healing in places you had to heal alone. And you'll be tempted to say, I'm not ready, I'm not enough. But let me remind you, God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. What does public calling look like? It doesn't always mean stages and microphones. Sometimes it looks like launching a business that changes culture, writing words that break chains, parenting with purpose in a dysfunctional bloodline, loving radically in a world growing cold, carrying peace into a toxic workplace without saying a word. You may never go viral, but your obedience echoes in eternity. And that's what chosen ones do. They shift atmospheres simply by showing up. But here's the hard truth. Not everyone will celebrate your rise. Your visibility will trigger the insecurity of those who stayed in comfort. Your clarity will offend those who profit from confusion. Your light will expose people still hiding behind spiritual performance. You'll hear whispers again. Who do they think they are? They're acting brand new, they're doing too much, they're not even qualified. And this time, you won't shrink. You won't explain. You won't apologize. Because you'll know, you didn't call yourself, God did. And the one who called you walks with you. The assignment is bigger than you. This isn't just about your healing. It's about the ones tied to your yes. Every time you show up with authenticity, you give someone else permission to stop pretending. Every time you speak truth gently, boldly, you disrupt lies that have ruled for generations. Every time you obey the nudge, whether it's starting a YouTube channel, writing that book, moving cities, quitting the job, or cutting the tie you partner with heaven. And every time you hesitate, the enemy rejoices. So what comes next? You move. Even when you're nervous. Even when the room looks too big. Even when the finances don't match the vision. Even when you still feel the sting of rejection. Because purpose isn't about being comfortable. It's about being faithful. Let's talk legacy. Your name doesn't need to be remembered by millions, but your obedience will be recorded in heaven. The ripple effect of one obedient chosen one. It shifts bloodlines. It reclaims territory. It inspires silent warriors watching from the shadows. You may never know whose life was saved because you didn't give up. But one day, maybe in eternity, you'll realize your yes was someone else's answered prayer. Real life example. The quiet leader. There's a woman you've never heard of. She wasn't famous. She wasn't followed. She worked as a janitor in a school for 23 years. But every student that passed her knew one thing when she looked at you. She saw you. She spoke life to children who were never affirmed. She prayed over hallways no one thought to bless. She handed out snacks, scriptures, and smiles. One day after she retired, the school launched a foundation, and her name was at the top of the board of advisors. Why? Because integrity in private becomes favor in public. And her call wasn't loud, but it was real. How do you carry your public call? 1. Stay grounded. Keep your private prayer life stronger than your public platform. 2. Stay submitted. Don't get so busy doing for God that you forget to be with Him. 3. Stay sharp. Guard your discernment. Every open door isn't divine. 4. Stay gentle. Power doesn't mean pride. Let people see heaven, not just excellence. 5. Stay real. The world doesn't need another spiritual performance. They need presence, yours and God's. This is the beginning of your legacy. You've cried enough. You've waited enough. You've doubted yourself long enough. And now, the call is no longer private. Heaven is announcing you. Earth is watching. And it's time. Don't wait for a perfect moment. Create one through obedience. Don't wait until you feel 100% ready. Move at 70% with 100% faith. Don't let fear preach a louder sermon than your assignment. Because you are the answer to a space that's been barren. You are the voice for a generation that's gone numb. You are the light for a path that's grown dark. And this world needs you not just healed, but activated. So what now? If you're ready, say it with your spirit. I accept the assignment. Comment 999 below to declare. The old me is gone. The mission is now public. Share this with someone you know is carrying something heavy in silence. Someone who knows they're chosen, but forgot they're also sent. Because the call isn't coming anymore. It's here, and you already know what to do. This is your moment. Walk through the gate. Take a breath. You've made it through the silence, the shadows, the spiritual shaking. And now, you're standing at the gate. Not a gate pinned of stone or steel, but a spiritual threshold, where your old life ends and your true purpose begins. You're not the same person who started this video. You've remembered who you are. More than that, you've remembered whose you are. Let it sink in. You are the evidence of God's divine strategy. The rejection. It was never meant to destroy you. It was protection, redirection, activation, the isolation. It wasn't punishment, it was consecration. You were being refined for something the crowd could never carry. You see, chosen ones don't emerge from comfort. They're forged in discomfort. They are purified in silence, tested in betrayal, and crowned in timing. And now your timing has arrived. But don't just rise, rise with reverence. Don't walk forward just to prove anyone wrong. Walk forward because you are finally right with yourself. Don't take action from pain. Take action from power. Don't waste time trying to convince people who were never assigned to understand you. Your call is bigger than their confusion. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that fits their preference. You owe heaven your obedience. This next season won't require more hustle. It will require more alignment. Your provision will meet you in purpose. Your answers will meet you in silence. Your favor will follow your yes. This is not the season to beg. Not the season to prove. Not the season to pretend. This is the season to walk like your footsteps are ordered, because they are. Let's pause here, just you and God. Close your eyes if you can. Put your hand on your heart and just breathe. Let go of who you thought you had to be. Release every voice that tried to talk you out of your light. Break every agreement you made with fear, shame, or scarcity. Now say this to yourself out loud, or in your spirit. I'm not crazy. I'm not broken. I'm not behind. I'm chosen. I'm ready. I'm aligned. I don't need to be louder. I need to be truer. I don't need to be perfect. I need to be faithful. And if this message stirred something deep in your soul, don't let it stop here. This is your moment to take spiritual ownership. Comment 999 below to declare. I accept the call. I release the old. I'm walking into my legacy. Like this video to plant a seed of agreement for yourself and for someone else watching in silence. Share this with a friend, sibling, or even a stranger who's been dimming their light. And subscribe to this channel if you know in your spirit that this is your tribe, that what we're building here is more than content. It's confirmation. Final word. And listen closely. You don't have to push open the next door. It's already swinging wide because it recognizes your vibration. The room already knows you're coming, and heaven has gone ahead of you. So when you walk in, walk with stillness. Walk with humility. Walk with authority. Because what God has placed on you, no human can take away. And what He's about to do through you will not only restore what you lost, it will redefine everything they thought they knew about you. This isn't the end, it's the threshold. And on the other side of this moment, is the version of you the world has been waiting to meet. Go walk through that gate. We'll be right here when you come back to pour out what heaven pours in. Stay chosen, stay aligned, stay powerful. Until next time, be who you were born to be.